Okay, so as you know, there were three decisions in financial management primarily. One was investing, one was financing, one was dividend. This, what we are doing now, or what we are going to do now, is part of financing decisions. Financing decisions means what is my cost of capital? Should I take my loan and start business, or should I use my own money and start business? In the sense, should I issue equity shares or should I go for debt, debentures, like that? Okay. The first one among them is cost of capital. Okay. So, what is the first of all objective of this discussion? Cost of capital. If you remember, we had discussed in investing decisions, the most important decision or parameter was NPV, which is calculated by present value of cash flows. For present value, we have used discounting rates. And what is the discounting rates? Discounting rate means we told required rate of return. And required rate of return, how do you judge your required rate of return? That is based on cost of capital. Are you understanding the objective of this chapter? Main discussion of this discussion is because when you make use of money in the business, depending on your source, you need to generate return from your business. For example, imagine in your business you use loan as a source of capital, and the loan has rate of interest as 8%. So when you invest the money in the business should generate at least 8% for you, at least 8%, because that is your interest. If you don't generate 8% also, then you are going to incur loss. Got the point? From a businessman, depending on your source, that is your cost, and at least that much cost you have to generate from your from your business, so that at least you can maintain no profit no loss situation. So whenever you evaluate projects like in investment decisions, we wanted required rate of return. How much is the required rate of return? That depends on your cost of finance, and that is what this topic is all about: cost of capital. That is one. Another one is, if you have different source of finance, you can take loan from bank A, you can take loan from cooperative bank, you can raise money from debentures, you can raise money from equity shares. So when different sources are there, which is the cheapest source of finance, so that selection can be done. That is also called as cost of capital. See, at your home, you wanted something, you want book. Why you will want book? No, no, you want some car, or no, why do you want car? You want bike, you want to go to some movie. Now, whom do you ask? Will you ask your mother or will you ask your father? You know what depends on? Usually, for small things, you only go for your mother. You really don't go to up to father level, because you can't take their expectation suddenly. Usually, I'm telling you, usually, that they will always be afraid of father's reaction. Mother, somehow you can manage. Normally, I'm telling. These days, things can be different. So what really happens is, because their, if you say their reaction as a cost, the reaction as a cost. With your mother, the reaction level is small, cost is small, so you choose that alternative. Are you understanding what is happening? Among various source of finance, which is a cheaper source of finance, you're trying to select. That is what about cost of capital chapter is all about. Okay, let's write down some basics, objectives, then we'll go for calculations and problems. So write the heading objectives, objectives, objective of cost of capital, objective of cost of capital, objective of cost of capital, objective of cost of capital. Okay, then below that you write down first one. When different sources of finance are available, when different sources of finance, when different sources of finance are available, when different sources of finance are available, when different sources of finance are available, the source, the source with cheapest cost, the source with cheapest cost, the source with cheapest cost, the source with cheapest cost is to be selected, is to be selected. Source with the cheapest cost is to be selected. That is first point. Second objective, second point, to make investment decisions, to make investment decisions, to make investment decisions, to make investment decisions, the required rate of return from the projects, to make investment decisions, required rate of return, required rate of return from the projects, required rate of return from the projects, required rate of return from the projects depends on the cost of the source, depends on the cost of the source, depends on cost of the source, depends on cost of the source, depends on cost of the source. Depends on cost of the source. Okay, so for these two reasons we have to compute the cost of cost of capital. Okay, now try to get this point, my dear friend, try to get this point. If you think like a debenture point of view, you have company and you have investors, we call them as debenture holders, debenture holders. Okay, now tell me, debenture interest, is it income or expense? Can you tell me? Tell me, debenture interest, income or expense? Debenture interest, is it income or expense? Income, expense? I'm getting both the answer, expense. Okay, okay. So for debenture holder, it is income. And for debenture interest for company, it is expense. Are you understanding? One person's income is other person's expense. You would have done these things in economics of finance also. Computation of GDP, income method, expenditure method. Because one person's income is other person's expenditure. One person's inflow is other person's outflow. One person's asset is other person's liability. I just tell you one sentence. Please don't take me personally. If your friend is completely drunk, if your friend is completely drunk and you have to take that person home, is it an asset or a liability? If the person is your sister or brother, then that is going to be a disadvantage. It's a liability. If that person is your girlfriend or boyfriend, that can be your advantage. That is your asset. And for other person, it's a liability. Again, please don't take me personally. I'm just telling you only the concept part, okay? That don't tell, go on outside and tell sir told like this and all. Only for examples, I tell these things. So the concept is one person's income is other person's expense. So when I say cost of capital, that is for the company, but from the investor point of view, that is going to be the income. So required rate of return of the investors is going to be expense for the company, or company's cost of capital. What we're discussing is nothing but the income for the investor. Okay, so we have to understand quite a few points. So let's say factors which influence cost of capital. Factors influence cost of capital. Give the heading. Let's write down one by one. First, income of one person is expense of another, or income of investor. Let's say income of investor is expense of company. Or income of investor, what we called in investing decision, what is the rate of return from the project, from the asset, is called as IRR. So IRR for investor is cost of capital for company. Cost of capital for company. First point. Second, in 1 second. Okay, now next one is impact of tax. This, whenever you want after tax impact, you need to do into 1 minus. Do you remember? Income is 10 rupees. Let's say you pay tax at 30%, means 3 rupees. After tax becomes 7 rupees. Directly, if you want to compute, how do you do? 10 rupees into 1 minus 0.3, right? 1 minus tax rate, 1 minus 30%. Impact of tax. If you want to know the after tax effect, so what do you do is to compute after tax effect, 1 minus t is multiplied. 1 minus t is multiplied. Third point, okay, historical cost versus current cost. Historical cost means when you took a loan long time back, what was the rate of interest? For example, you took a housing loan. Your housing loan, when you take the loan, it was 10%, but now it has become 8%. Similarly, in business also it can happen. When you take a loan, at the time of taking the loan, you are paying 10% rate of interest. As of now, the interest in the market would be less, market price would have changed. So if you want to compute historical cost of capital, then historical price should be used, meaning issue price at the time of original, at the time of issue. Whereas if you want the current cost, then current market price to be used. 1 second. Okay, so if you want to know the historical cost, that is when you issued the debentures 5 years back, 10 years back, that you're using it now. You would have issued the equity shares long time back, that you're using it now. So based on the historical cost, based on the issue price, that is the old cost, cost of capital. And if you're using that money now, then historical cost is relevant. But if you're using fresh finance, you're going for issue of shares today, You're issuing debentures today, or you want to know notionally, if I issue my debentures today, what is my notional cost, current relevant cost, that is historical cost. So historical cost is based on issue price earlier, old issue price. Current cost is market price. Current cost is based on market price. Okay. And overall, basic formula of cost of capital, is like return on investment. That is for company or for investor. Basic formula, basic formula we discussed just now, that is return for investor is expense for company. Return for investor is expense for company. Now, return for investor is what is return he expects. So, return on investment. So, return divided by investment into 100. Expense of the company is what cost they raise divided by how much finance, what cost they pay divided by how much finance they raise into 100. But this finance will be net finance. By net finance, sometimes you might have some issue expenses, like when you take loan you have to pay processing charges. When you raise equity shares, you might have to do underwriting commission, you should pay registration charges, you have to file prospectus, those expense will be there. So I will say net finance in the denominator. So basic formula, return for investor, return on investment, return by investment into 100, and expense of the company is their expense like interest cost divided by net finance, meaning money received net of all expenses, net proceeds, net finance 200. You can say net proceeds divided by net 200. Okay. Any doubts so far, my dear friends? Tell me. Any doubts so far? Any points I need to explain? Is the points clear so far? Shall we move further? Okay, good. Okay. Now, whatever we discuss now, I'll tell you in the form of a chart so it becomes easier for you. Okay. Before the chart, let us try to understand this concept. See, for debt, there is interest. Debt in the sense you will have loan or you have a debenture, whatever may be. Company has to pay interest. For, okay, before that, sorry, one more concept I should tell you, then I'll explain you this. You are living in Bangalore or any other city for that matter. You have two choices. Either stay in rented house or you stay in own house. Maybe apartment or maybe a property or whatever it is. Now, which one is cheaper? Can you tell me? Which is cheaper in cost? Which is less costly? Which is cheaper? Let me tell you, own house, you don't have any loan, no loan, and it is in your name only. It has no problems. You only have it. You don't have any siblings. You are the only son or daughter. So it belongs to you only, or it is in your name only. It is your house. Now tell me, which is cheaper, rented house or own house? Which is cheaper source of, which is the lesser costlier? Which is cheap? Being in a rented house, being in a own house? Purely from, I'm asking finance. I'm not asking non-financial benefits. I'm not asking your emotions. I'm not asking your feelings. I'm purely asking from finance point of view, rented house is cheaper or own house is cheaper. I'm getting many answer own house. Yes, you are right, because rented house you don't have to pay rent, right? Rented house you have to pay rent, but own house no rent. Yes, you are perfectly fine in that sense. But you try to think like this: to have a 30-40 site in primary area like MG Road. Just imagine. Lot of people are looking at me like something. Imagine at least. Imagine. Just imagine. You have a 30-40 site in MG Road where do you think you will be like, I will construct my house here. I don't have to pay any rent. I can live around say here MG Road. I would say that person is stupid. Why? Why do you stay in MG Road? There you give it on rent. You will get at least 2 lakh per month as rent. You go to nearby shop, a nearby not shop, nearby area, and take one house on rent, and you can pay 50,000. Lavish house you get. You can easily earn 1,50,000 income. No. Are you understanding my point? Even living in own house has a cost. Not only rented house has a cost, rented house has a cost in terms of rental cost, outflow of cash. But even in own house, there is a cost. To live in your own house, you are giving up the rental income opportunity. You are sacrificing the rental income. What is that called as? Any idea? What is that called as? Opportunity cost. Perfect. Opportunity cost. Opportunity. So, the same concept applies in cost of capital chapter also. Now, when a company uses debentures, they will pay interest. If they use preference shares, they will pay dividend. What if they use equity shares? They don't have to pay anything. Is it only dividend? Not necessarily, because equity shareholders takes more risk by investing in your company. That means they will expect more return from your company. uh, that is because equity shareholders are the risk bearers of the company. They are the ultimate owners. So from their money they require higher rate of return. That is, for example, you think like this: to have rupees 100 with you, you could have invested elsewhere in some, let's say, fixed deposit, which will give you 6% rate of return. If you are investing in the same money in your business, it should generate at least 6% rate of return, 6 plus. More than that, how much more? That depends on the risk you take. That depends on the opportunity cost you have. So depend on the opportunity cost also will be determined. Hope you are getting the point. I'll do the summary now. Now, in let's say investor is one heading, instrument and company. Okay, that is a heading. Investor is lender, like a debenture holder, gives loan to the company. That borrower. What borrower will pay to the lender is interest. So for a borrower, it is interest expense, but for a lender, it is interest income. For preference shareholders, it is preference shares. Issuer of the company. What does issuer of the company will pay? Preference share dividend. That is an expense. But for preference shareholder, it is an income. Expense in the sense it is outflow for issuer, whereas inflow, income for investor. What about equity shareholders? Equity shareholder expects dividend. He expects profit. Therefore, that is expectation of the shareholder is the cost of the issuer. Means the equity shareholders expectation is the cost of the issuer. I told you required rate of return, required rate of return of investor, required rate of return of investor is equal to cost of capital of issuer or of company of issuer. Write down this chart. Let me know if you have any doubts. Write down this chart. Let me know if you have any doubts. Okay, is it completed? Shall we go further? Please confirm. Is it done? It is done. I'll move further. Okay, done. Okay, now we'll come to various cost of capital. Cost of capital, we use the term K. I don't know why K, maybe it's the sounding K, but we write C here, but the short form we use is K, cost of capital. The cost of debt, use KD, cost of debt. Redeemable debentures are there, irredeemable debentures are there. Cost of preference shares, redeemable is there, irredeemable is there. Equity shares, then overall cost, we have weighted average cost of capital, we have marginal cost of capital. The cost of debt is KD, cost of preference share is KP, cost of equity is KE, overall cost of capital is KO. KO is also called as weighted average cost of capital, which is WACC, and marginal cost of capital we call it as MCC. Short forms. Okay, now let's come to irredeemable debt. Okay, now debt, for debt, simple formula, rate of interest to 1 minus t. This is for cost of debt I'm discussing. Okay, cost of debt. But when they have some information like net proceeds and all will be there, then we have second formula applicable, which is cost of debt is calculated by interest income or interest expense after tax, so into 1 minus t divided by net proceeds. Net proceeds, I told you, if you are using the historical cost, net proceeds will be issue price. If you are computing the current cost, net proceeds will be market price. And what do you mean by net proceeds? Issue price minus issue expenses, market price minus issue expenses. Okay, the third formula is important. Cost of debt for redeemable debentures. Cost of debt for redeemable debentures. Before I'll give you the formula, I'll give you the logic. Tell me this. Suppose debentures current market price is 80 rupees. Okay, current debenture market price is 80 rupees. And let's say rate of interest or amount of interest what you get, interest per annum, you get, let's say 10 rupees per annum you get. And debentures redeemable is 100 rupees. Now, and term of the year is, let's say, for 2 years. Are you getting basic my points, my dear friends? Debenture market price 80 rupees, interest 10 rupees, redeemable 100. If you want to invest in the debentures today, you have to pay 80 rupees. Now tell me, by paying 80 rupees, listen to me carefully, by paying 80 rupees, every year how much income I get? Tell me. By paying 80 rupees every year, how much income I get? I get 10. But we have discussed in investing decisions. Your income is not only what you get, your income is observe 80 you invest. Last year you get back 100. That means 20 rupee also you get. Are you understanding? 80 rupees your investment, but when you redeem after 2 years, you get 100 rupees. So profit of 20 rupees you get there also. So 20 rupees divided by 2, can I tell additional 10 rupees? Are you getting additional 10 rupees also I'm getting? 10 rupee every month income I get, every year income, interest. But additional to that interest, the difference between market price and redemption price is also my income. Or in your terms of company, amortization of expenses. 20 rupees amortized for 2 years. Yes, that is the formula for cost of debt. Cost of debt, when you calculate, the formula will be cost of debt. Formula is this. We calculate like this: cost of debt. One is interest into 1 minus t. That is one type of expense or income. Another one is important. That is RV minus NP. I'll tell you what is this means. Divided by N whole divided by RV plus NP divided by 2. RV represents redeemable value and NP represents net proceeds. And net proceeds means whatever the issue price or minus issue price or market price. Both are fine. Issue price and market price minus all the issue expenses. That will give you net proceed. So numerator is interest into 1 minus t plus redeemable value minus net proceeds divided by n. Why divide by n? This income difference between your market price and redeemable value is one time income. When you get it on redemption only you get, but this has to be amortized over a period of number of years, like an average expense, like an average profit. That is why divided by n. Denominator, you remember we have learnt in return on investment formula. Return on investment formula, what is the denominator? Average investment, because every year investment amount will change. Divided by average investment means how? Opening investment plus closing investment divided by 2. Opening value, today value is net proceeds. Closing value is redeemable value. Opening plus closing divided by 2. This will give you like a average investment. Actually, this is a proxy for IRR from the investor point of view and cost of debt for the company point of view. Write down this formula. Let me know if any concept need to be explained. And I'm not doing 1 minus t for the second part. For the second part, 1 minus t is not applied because assuming no tax impact. Assuming no tax impact. If you have tax impact there also we should do into 1 minus t. But usually long term, like long term gains and all are exempt. Usually we don't take any tax impact. But if you assume that also has tax impact, even second part is multiplied by 1 minus t. Interest, t means tax rate. Write down. Let me know if any concept need to be explained once more. Is it done? Please confirm. Is it completed? I'm getting one question. Third formula once again, no problem. Denominator, you think from an investor point of view. Okay, think like you are a debenture investor. Denominator is like investment. Numerator is like income. So what is the income for the investor? Income for the investor is interest income, but after tax. So interest into 1 minus t, that he gets every year. But not only he gets this every year, he has one time income also. What is one time income? He will invest today, that is net proceeds or market price, and he will get redemption value after maturity period. Like today, if you invest market price 80 rupees and after 5 years you get 100 rupees, that means 20 rupees the profit, one time profit you get after 5 years. But if you spread across number of years, what do? 100 minus 80, 20 rupees divided by 5 years. Your average income is 4 rupees. So this is annual income. This is one time income spread across number of years. One time income spread across number of years, like your depreciation, cost minus scrap value divided by useful life, like that. The difference, income, one time income you get spread across number of years. So numerator is income, average profits. Denominator is average investment. Today investment is market price or net proceeds, and at the end of the term it is redemption value. So opening plus closing by 2. Opening is net proceeds, closing is redemption value divided by 2. So denominator is like average investment, numerator is like average profits. Average investments by average profits. Is the formula clear? To explain the formula, any part again once more, please ask, no problem, I'll repeat. Understand the formulas logically, don't by heart it, so that you don't have to remember it, it will come to you naturally. Okay, now with respect to preference shares, very simple, because for cost of debt we took rate of interest, for cost of debt we took rate of interest. For preference shares it's only going to be preference share dividend. So cost of preference share is rate of preference shares, preference share dividend. All other formulas remain same. One important exception, 1 minus t don't apply. 1 minus t don't apply. Can you tell me why and how? Why 1 minus t don't apply? Why 1 minus t don't come in preference shares? Why do you think it will 1 minus t will not come in preference shares? Not because of fixed rate of interest. In preference share dividend, for tax purpose, it's not an expense. It is a distribution of profits. It is considered as appropriation of profits. It is distribution of profits, appropriation of profits. So for computation of tax, dividend is not considered as expense. It is not allowed for tax purposes. When it is not allowed for tax purposes, the 1 minus t don't apply. Write down that note somewhere. Write down that note. Preference share dividend is not an expense for the company. Preference share dividend is not an expense for the company. Preference share dividend is not an expense for the company. Preference share dividend is not an expense for the company for the purposes of tax. Preference share dividend is not an expense for the company, is not an expense for the company for the purpose of computation of tax, for the purpose of tax, for the purpose of tax, for the purpose of tax. And hence the factor 1 minus t, hence the factor 1 minus t don't apply. The factor 1 minus t, the factor 1 minus t don't apply. The factor 1 minus t don't apply in cost of preference shares. The factor 1 minus t don't apply in cost of preference shares. Don't apply in cost of preference shares. In cost of preference, in cost of preference share. Okay, so let's continue. Let's continue. So I have done with the cost of debt and cost of preference shares. Now we'll come to the cost of equity. Cost of equity is a tricky thing, as I told you. Uh, Cost of debt has got a specific cash flow, which is interest. Cost of preference shares has got a specific cash flow, which is preference share dividends. But cost of equity don't have a specific cash flow because it is the shareholders' opportunity cost. Cost of equity is what is expected by shareholders opportunity cost. So that is slightly challenging, and we have different models to understand. One, we have dividend growth model. The formula is D1 by P0 plus G. D1 means dividend expected at the end of the year. At the end of year. Dividend expected at the end of the year. P0 is current market price. Current market price per share. Market price per share. And G stands for growth rate. G is the growth rate. So from exam point of view, this is a popular one I can say, but practically it is not used much. This is also one of the method I agree. So dividend growth model, D1 by P0 plus G. What is the logic behind this? You think like a equity shareholder. To become a equity shareholder, what you have to invest? Market price. So denominator market price is like investment. Now for investing the market price, what do you get every year? Is dividends. So D1. Why? There is a time gap. D1 is at the end of the year. P0 is today. Why there is a time gap? Because if you invest today, you get the dividend only at the end of the year, logically speaking. Therefore, P0 investment today, T1 dividend after year 1. T1 dividend after year 1. Fine. Plus growth rate, because shareholder is a risk taker. For him, 1 year income is not sufficient. He wants his increase in growth rate also. Like for a debenture holder, he will expect only rate of interest. But for an equity shareholder, he wants his rate of return to increase every year. Just a dividend is not sufficient. He wants his income percentage to increase every year. So plus growth rate. Earning price approach. Earning price approach means same formula. Instead of dividend, we use EPS, earnings. That is the only change. So this can be applied when if all earnings are paid out as dividends, this formula will be applied. Realized yield approach. Realized yield approach, I'll tell you. Realized yield approach means what is the historical rate of return what you got. For example, you purchase the share at, let's say, 40 rupees. You sold after, let's say, 3 years for 70 rupees. So profit is 30 rupees, and every year dividend you got 2 rupees. So how much is your average rate of return? You got 30 rupee profit, plus first year you receive 2 rupees, second year you receive 2 rupees, third year also you receive 2 rupees. So total your profit is 36, right? 36. But this is for 3 years divided by 3, which will be 12 per annum. So your average return is 12 for investment of 40. Whatever you get, that is called as realized yield approach. T1 plus P1 minus P0. So this P1 minus P0 is difference in prices, and D1 is dividend divided by P0 into 100. This will give you one rate of return. Then this you can divide by number of years. That will be the average rate of return. Now, there is one more important formula called as CAPM, but before that, any of these formula to be repeated so that I can go to the most important area, which is realized yield approach, capital asset pricing model approach. Any of these formula should be repeated, let me know. Any doubts? Please learn the formula logically, don't by heart it. Any doubts? Any concept to be repeated? Let me know. Is it done? Please confirm. Okay. The third formula, let's take simple example. Suppose today market price, that is P0, 30 rupees. You sold the shares after, let's say, 5 years for 40 rupees. And every year you receive dividend of, let's say, 2 rupees. If I apply this formula, what is the dividend you received? 2 rupee dividend you received for how many years? For 5 years. That is your income. Plus you invested 30 rupees, you sold it for 40 rupees, right? 30 rupees you purchased, sold for 40 rupees. So what is that profit comes to? One second. That profit is 40 minus 30, right? So what is your total profit? 2 into 5, 10 rupees. 40 minus 30, also 10 rupees. So total profit you made is 20 rupees. This is what I'm telling. This is dividend and this is P1 minus P0. Difference in the prices is your income, and dividend is also your income. Dividend income is 2 into 5, 10, and the price change is 40 minus 30, that is also your income. So 20 rupees your income. Then divided by investment. What is your investment? Your investment is 30 rupees. So divided by 30 rupees into 100 to express in percentage. So how much you get? 10 plus 10, 20, 20 by 30. You get 66.66%, 66.67% rate of return. This is for how many years? This is for 5 years. If you want per annual basis, divided by 5. Are you getting the point? The formula, whatever answer comes, some 12, some 13%, I think you may get, some 13 point something you get. But are you getting the formula now? P1 minus P0, difference in the prices, dividend received, Dividend received is your income. Difference in the prices is also your income. So numerator is total income, total yield divided by market price, that is your investment, then divide by number of years, give you the average rate of return. So we get profit by earning. I mean, we don't say profit by earning, profit by investment. You get the profit through dividends. You get the profit through difference in the market price. Both are your profits. That's why both are added. Are you getting the points, my dear friends? See, 2 into 5. This is your income, dividend income. And then 40 minus 30, 10. This is also your income. So dividend is also your income. Difference in the market price is also your income. So total earnings is numerator. Numerator is total earnings divided by the market price. Yes, total profit or total earnings. Correct. Numerator is total profits. Denominator is investment. But this will be for many number of years. So take an average. Divide by n. Is the formula clear? Any part I should explain once more? Please confirm. Any portion of the formula I should explain once more? P1 represent dividends. P1 minus P0 difference in the market price divided by P0 today investment. Whole divided by n because number of years you have to allocate. Hope you are very clear till here because next one is going to be very simple formula but very interesting and useful formula. Okay. Hope everything is clear now. Okay. Now let me come to this capital asset pricing model. So you think you are an investor. You can invest in fixed deposits or you can invest in shares. Can you tell me where you require more income? In fixed deposit you want more income or in the shares you want more income? So in FD you want more income. Okay, I'll ask you the question other way around. Fixed deposit gives you 8% rate of returns. Now invest in shares. Do you think, are you happy if you get 8% rate of return in the shares market? In the shares, do you expect more than 8% or less than 8%? When you invest in shares, you take more risk. When you take more risk, you should get more return also. And FD is no risk or less risk, so it has no return. Very simple. If you do a business, at least you should expect 8% rate of return. Otherwise, why should you do business? Don't do business. Close your business, put the money in fixed deposit, you get the returns. That's all simple. So when you do a business, when you invest in shares, as a equity shareholder, as a risk taker, you want more return because you are taking more risk. That is what this capital asset pricing model is all about. So the CAPM model is talking about a return, a required rate of return or cost of equity comprised of two elements. One is risk-free return and other is risk premium. Risk-free return and risk premium. What is risk-free return? Without any risk also you should get, like FD, treasury bond, government bonds. Rate of return paid by government, that is risk-free return. Risk premium means in whichever shares you invest. and whichever company you invest. Now you tell me, I invest in a infrastructure company versus I invest in a software company. Tell me which one is more riskier? Infrastructure company is more riskier or software company is more riskier? Infrastructure, right? Infrastructure company is more riskier. So even in the shares, every company is not same risk. Every business is not same risk. Every industry is not same risk. Different industry has got different risk element. So that is why we will compute the risk premium like this. Market premium multiplied by beta. So this beta represents risk factors. The derivation behind beta, how to compute beta, you will learn in portfolio management chapter. A final, or if you learn elsewhere, you learn portfolio management chapter, you learn. But as of now, just remember beta means risk factor with respect to market. So beta equals to 2 means if the market, market means average people. If market returns is 1%, your security, your company, your business is 2 times riskier. So it should be 2%. And market premium is calculated as RM, that is market returns minus RF, risk-free rate. Risk-free return is RF. The formula for CAPM is given as RF plus RM minus RF multiplied by make sure you put a bracket here because that is entire part. Are you understanding the point? I'll repeat once more, then let me know if you have any doubts. As per CAPM model, your required rate of return comprises of two elements. Element number 1, risk-free rate, we call it as RF. Element number 2 is called as risk premium, means the return for the risk taken. How do you calculate the risk taken? Beta. Beta represents risk factor. What is beta? Beta is the risk factor in comparison with market, in comparison with average returns, what everybody is getting, market returns. So risk premium is calculated by market premium into beta, because market premium is the premium provided by market. But if you want for a security, particular business, you multiply it by beta. So risk premium is calculated by market premium into beta, and market premium is calculated as over and above risk-free rate. So RM, market return minus RF, risk-free rate. Overall formula RF plus beta into RM minus RF. RF is the risk-free return component. RM minus RF into beta represents the risk. Let me know if any concept to be repeated here. If you remember the formula and this much interpretation sufficient at this level. When you come to final level, when you do portfolio management chapter, you'll understand how this formula is derived over so many number of years. So many theories started, after which this formula is the most popular one, theoretical and practical and examination also. This is used so many places. I've worked in so many, I've worked on so many valuation of companies, so I know how important this formula is. RF plus RM minus RF into beta. Any component I need to repeat from exam point of view, from your level, you remember this formula sufficient. Beta is risk, RM minus RF is market premium multiplied by beta, that is the risk premium, plus RF, that will give you the required rate of return, that will give you the cost of equity. And in exam problem, which one are you going to use? Whichever information available you are going to use. Among all these formulas, whichever information available you are going to use. Okay. Any doubts here, my dear friends? Shall we go next? Any concept to be repeated? Okay, I'm getting one question. I'll answer that. Market premium means, as I told you, in stock market, so many shares will be there. Every shares is going to provide different risk and different returns. But if I ask you, okay, tell me in general, what the stock market gives me? Actually, that is represented by index. You see, you would have heard Sensex, Nifty. They are the average returns. So if I invest in fixed deposit, I get 8%. If I invest in stock market in all the shares, let's say, on an average, I will get 12%. So how much extra I'm getting by investing in the share market? On an average, 4% extra I'm getting. That 4% extra is called as market premium. Market return means this average returns of all the stocks in the stock market. So 12% means if you have 100 stocks in the stock market, take the average returns, that is 12% you are getting. Are you getting the meaning of market premium? Should I explain once more? Market premium means by investing in the stock market, how much extra you get over and above risk free rate on an average. Is it clear? I explain once more. Cost of preference share capital we already discussed. We should not discuss at this point in time. When we do the problem, we will discuss once more. If you have any doubt, you ask. Please don't ask in between another concept that will confuse the students, other students. That should not be the way out. I am ready to explain, but that should not confuse others. When we do the problem, I will again explain. At that point in time, ask your doubts. Definitely, I will repeat. No problem. Hope all the concepts are clear. Take one more minute. Look at this cost of equity, especially CAPM. Let me know if you have any doubt in the CAPM. I'll repeat, no problem. So when you invest in fixed deposit, you get 8%. But when you invest in stock market, you get 12%. So by investing in the stock market, how much extra return you get? 4%. Why do you get that extra return 4%? Because you're taking more risk. That is why 4% called as the market premium. Market premium because investing in the stock market, you took risk. A return for the risk is called as the return for the risk, that is risk premium, market premium. That 4% extra is market premium. Any doubt still? Amount of return is based on market price. Today market price is 100. At the end of the year it became 112. So rate of return is 12%. That is, if you have one stock gave you 20%, another stock gave you 8%. So take an average. The average stock is 12%. In market, many stocks will be there. All the stocks, if I take an average, that is the market return. average return of all the stocks in the market. That is why I did not use all these average return concept. I just used the term market returns. So if you invest in stock market in general, how much you can expect? Fine. Any other doubts? Conceptually, all this fine, but I'm not explaining the concept in detail. I've explained the overall concept because derivation, how beta is calculated, that's an important issue. So all those things, how RM is calculated, all those calculation aspect you will learn in CA final level portfolio management chapter. If you still uh, uh, accept my tolerance level, accept my torture level, or you still comfortable with my level of teaching, you can come to me in CA final. I will teach you in detail derivation of all these formula also. But ultimate formula is very simple. It is RF plus RM minus RF into beta. In the exam, they'll give you RF, they'll give you beta, or sometime they'll give you RM minus RF as market premium they'll give you. Sometimes they'll give you market return they will give you. Only that much if you remember sufficient for exam, but conceptually at this level whatever required, I try to cover it. I hope you got the conceptual clarity. One part is risk-free return, second part is risk premium. Is it done? Shall I go further? Please confirm. Okay. Okay. We'll just discuss one more overall concept. Then we come to the problems. So look at this. Overall cost of capital. If cost of debt is 10%, cost of equity is 12%. Now company is using both the money and they are investing. So for example, cost of debt is 100 rupees. Cost of equity is 100 rupees. So they have got 200 rupees now. Now 200 rupees they want to invest in a company, in some projects. Can you tell me how much return they should generate so that they can fulfill this cost? Are you getting the point? From equity, they got 100. From debt, they got 100. Cost of equity, 12%. Cost of debt, 10%. Put together, you have 200 rupees. When the 200 rupees invested in some projects, how much return they should generate so that this cost can be covered? How much percentage return should be generated? 22. So 200 into 22% or rupees? 22 rupees, correct. So 100 into 12% means here you should pay 12 rupees and 100 into 10% means he should pay 10 rupees, right? So total is 22 rupees. Now 22 on 200, how much percentage? 11%, right? Is the number correct? Is it coming to 11%? Is it 11? Yes. What is at 11? Can I say 12 plus 10 divided by 2? That is only 11. That is what is average cost of capital. But here you got equal amount, 100 and 100 equal amount. Therefore, simple average is fine. So average cost of capital, or we say weighted average. Weighted average cost of capital. Weighted average cost of capital. also called as WACC. Don't pronounce it as WAC and all. Some people sitting next to you think otherwise about you, especially if you're doing some of these problems in bus stop. CS students will read everywhere they go. So if you do whack whack, some people think something happened to you. Just be careful. That to Corona time, people will stay away from you and all. Don't take chance. So read WACC like that. You read. Don't read whack and all. So why it is weighted average? Because the weights of the equity, weights of the debt are not equal amounts. Equity may be 10 lakhs, debt may be 5 lakhs, preference shares may be 2 lakh. So amounts will be different. So weights are also different. So you follow this format: cost, like whatever cost of debt equal to cost of equity equal to, like type. Okay, let me give the formula. WACC calculation, we go like this. Type, we'll have equity, we'll have debt or preference shares like that. Then cost, mean equity will have cost of equity, debt will have cost of debt, cost of preference share, cost of preference shares. We multiply it by weights. How do we get the weight? We compute the amounts. We get the total amounts, right? And amount divided by total will give you the weights. For example, if this is 1 lakh, if this is 50,000, this is 50,000. So total is 2 lakh. So 1 lakh out of 2 lakh. So how much 1 lakh out of 2 lakh? 1 lakh by 2 lakh, 0.5. That becomes the weight. So we have the weight, we have the cost, then we do the product. The product total, what you get ultimately, is called as weighted average cost of capital, WA. What is the interpretation? We'll come to it. And this amount or the weights can be two methods. Some people solve it based on book value methods. Some people do it on market value methods. Book value weights, market value weights. Meaning, if it is debenture, you take a face value of 100 rupees, let's say. Or if market price 125, you take market price of 125. So when you take a book value versus market value, amounts will change, weights also will change, WACC also will change. We'll do problem all these things, don't worry. Any doubts? Please let me know. Any point I should explain? Are you clear about WACC? This is also called as overall cost of capital, KO, overall cost of capital. Simple weighted average. You can also write like this: WACC equals you say like cost of debt to weight of debt plus cost of equity to weight of equity plus cost of preference shares to weight of preference shares. Weighted average also will give you the answer. I'm getting one question: why we have to calculate? Because they will be asked in the examination. Anyway, just kidding. Why we have to calculate? I just told you. No, just now I told you. 100 rupees equity, 100 rupees debt. Cost of equity is 10%. Cost of debt is 10%. Cost of equity is 12%. When you're using the different source of finance in a project, how much rate of return you should expect? Because you're using debt also as a source of finance, you're using equity also source of finance. So what is the return to be expected from the project? Should be average return. If I use only debt, cost of debt I can expect. If I use only equity, cost of equity I can expect from my project. But I've used debt also, equity also. So my return from the project should be an average return. Then only that project is to be accepted. Are you getting the point? Why we have to calculate WACC? Or in the capital budgeting, investment decisions, I told you required rate of return, discounting rate will be there to compute NPV, profitability index, to compute uh, IRR, or to compute MIRR. All those things we had. Cost of capital, I mean the required rate of return. cost of capital, that required rate of return in the project is WACC. So when you make investment decisions, you should expect a rate of return from the project. How do you know how much to expect? WACC, the expected rate of return. I hope you understood logical aspect as well as computation aspect. I'm telling you mathematically also, logically also. I hope you understand both the aspects. Any other doubts? Okay. One more term is there that also I'll explain. That is marginal cost of capital. You know, in costing, there is one term called as marginal cost. What is marginal cost? Cost of producing additional products. The same concept applicable here. Marginal cost of capital, MCC, cost of raising additional finance, additional source of finance. Same format will apply. Type, cost, amount, weight, the product. The total what we get is marginal cost of capital. Sir, what is the difference between marginal cost of capital and weighted average cost of capital? Weighted average cost of capital is your existing source of finance. Marginal cost is table may look like the same, but you only go for additional finance. Additionally, I require 10 crores. Additionally, I require 5 lakhs. Only for the additional source of finance, I compute the average cost. That is called as marginal cost of capital. So are you clear now? We understood cost of debt, cost of preference shares, cost of equity, then cost of equity under various model, overall cost of capital, WACC and MCC. So conceptually we have covered all the concept relevant in this chapter. The only thing left out is solving problem. Okay, I hope you are clear till here. Shall I go to problems? To come to this problem, XYZ Limited has the following book value capital structure. Equity capital in shares 10 each, fully paid at par 15 crores. 11% preference capital in shares 100 each, fully paid at par 1 crore. Retained earnings rupees 20 crores. 13.5 private debentures rupees 10 crores. 15% term loan 12.5 crores. The next expected dividend on equity share per share is rupees 3.6 and dividend per share is expected to grow at 7%. The market price per share is rupees 40. Preference stock redeemable after 10 years is currently selling at 75 per share. Debentures redeemable at after 6 years are selling at 80 per debenture. Income tax rate for the company is 40%. Calculate the weighted average cost of capital using book value proportions and market value proportion. Also calculate the marginal cost of capital schedule of the company if it raises 10 crores next year. Given the following information, the amount will be raised by equity and debt in equal proportions. The company expects to retain 1.5 crores earnings in the next year. The additional issue of equity share will result in net price per share being fixed at rupees 32. Debt capital raised by way of a term loan would cost 15% for the first 2.5 crores and 16% for the next 2.5 crores. Prepare a pattern of raising debt and equity for every change in cost of capital. Then they asked book value proportions and market value proportions. Book value proportion means we take everything. We take cost of debt, cost of preference shares, cost of equity, also cost of retained earnings. But when it comes to market value proportions, cost of debt we take, cost of preferences we take, cost of equity we take, cost of retained earnings we don't take. The reason is, when you take market price of equity shares, it includes the capital amount as well as the reserves and surplus, retained earnings amount. Because when a shareholders market price, if you calculate, market price includes not only capital value, it also includes the element of reserves and surplus. That is why in market value proportions, retained earnings are not considered, because in the equity share, market price for equity share, the market value of retained earnings are also included. I hope that point is clear. Okay. So let's solve this problem. First, cost of equity. Okay, what is cost of equity? Next expected dividend on equity share is 3.6. Next expected dividend. Can you tell me, is it D1 or D0? Next expected dividend, D1 or D0? D1, because expected. If they said last paid, it would have been D0, but they said expected, so D1. And market price is 40, growth rate is 7%, no issue expense and all, so simply you can write one second, all alignment, then we can write it down. Okay, so 3.6 by 40, growth rate 0.07, so 0.09 plus 0.07, 0.16, that is 16%. Cost of debt. Okay, we'll come to cost of debt. First, you write down cost of equity. Okay, now cost of debt. What information available regarding debentures? Debentures redeemable after 6 years are selling at 80 per debenture. Selling at 80 per debentures, meaning current market price is 80. And redeemable at what price? They have not given. So redeemable at par. redemption value will be at par, and debentures having a rate of interest of 13.5% debenture, rate of interest 13.5, and tax rate we have, do we have information on tax rates? I think no information on tax rates. So you can write, you have information, is it tax rates? Yeah, company's tax rate 40%. Tax rate is 40%. So we can make use of that. So interest into 1 minus tax rate, interest 13.5 into 1 minus tax rate, which is 1 minus 0.4 divided by plus redemption value. Redemption value, nothing is given. We'll take it as seconds. Small alignment here. Okay. So when nothing is given, redemption value will take it as 100. So interest amount is 13.5 into tax rate 1 minus 0.4, redemption value 100 because assumed to be redeemable at par, current market price 80 divided by 6. Redemption value plus market price divided by 2, 100 plus 80 divided by 2. So you simplify, you get 0.127 or 12.7%. Similarly, preference share, same formula except that 1 minus tax rate don't apply. Cost of term loan, rate of interest into 1 minus t, that's a simple one. Okay, you write down till here. I hope you're able to get it. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. %, yeah, correct. Okay. You write down till here. If you have any doubts, please ask. Okay, let's move further. Okay, let's move further now. Hope you got it till here. Please confirm. Hope you got all these answers. Any questions? Can you please confirm? Is it done till here? Done. Okay, good. Okay, let's go for next calculation. Overall cost of capital, they said using book value also, using market value also. So first using book value, so equity share, preference share, debenture and retained earnings. So and retained earnings, right? So equity share we calculated 16%, then preference share we calculate 15.43, debt 12.7, term loan 9, retained earnings we got 1 minus personal tax rate, that is 16%. Amount 15. So I hope you remember this. Yeah, retained earnings is same as equity share 16%. This is also 16%. But if they had given information on personal tax rate, I would have done into 1 minus personal tax, because when shareholders receive dividend, they would have paid tax. If personal tax information was given, then you could have assumed like that. Anyway, so preference share amounts, have they given the face values? Let's check it out. 15 crores rupees, rupees 1 crore, rupees 20 crores, rupees 10 crores, rupees 12.5 crores. So all the book value they have given, you can easily compute the weights. So amount 15 divided by 58.5. I'm taking two decimals. You can take more also. 15 by 58.5 is 0.26. 1 by 58.5 is 0.02. 10 by 58.5 0.17. 12.5 by 58.5 0.21. 20 by 58.5 0.34. Then multiply 16 cost into weight. 16 into 0.26, you get 4.16. 15.43 into 0.02, 0.31. 12.7 into 0.17, 2.16. 9 into 0.21, 1.89. 16 into 0.34, get 5.44, and total 13.96. Please write down till there and let me know if you have any doubt. Okay. Now, using market value weights, what is the change? Equity share, same thing. Preference share will be there, debenture will be there, term loan will be there. Retained earnings will not be there. Cost is same. Amount wise, it will change. We'll compute the amounts, but just fill up this table. Then we'll fill up the amounts. Cost will remain same anyways. Amounts will change. So weight will change. So product also will change. Okay. Let me give you the amounts now. Okay. Now regarding equity shares, share capital of 10 each and rupees 15 crores, and market price of the share is 40 rupees. So how do you calculate? 15 crores is for a face value of 10 rupees, and if the value is 40 rupees, how much is the amount? Or what you can do, 15 crores is the face value divided by 10 rupee, that is the face value, right? So how many number of shares will you get? 1.5 crore shares, and 1.5 crore shares multiplied by 40. 1.5 crore shares multiplied by 40. That's how you get this. 1.5 crore shares multiplied by 40. 60 crores. What about preference shares? Preference share capital of 1 crore of 100 each. So 1 crore divided by hundreds means you get 0.001 crores shares. 0.01 crores, then multiplied by the market price of preference shares. Preference shares are redeemable at 75, so multiplied by 75, so that will give you 0.75. So preference shares are calculated by 0.01 crore shares multiplied by 75. Then coming to debentures, debentures are rupees 10 crores. So rupees 10 crores divided by face value of hundreds, that will give you 0.1 crores multiplied by market price of 80 rupees. 0.1 crores, 0.1 crores number of debentures multiplied by 80, that will give you 8. Term loan, that will have book value only, because term loan cannot have market value and all, that will be 12.5 only. So you get the total. Retained earnings, don't take it. When you do the equity shares, that will include the value of retained earnings also when you do book value, when you do market value method. So in book value method, retained earning is calculated, which is equal to cost of equity into 1 minus personal tax rate if available. But market value weights, retained earnings should not be considered because it is already included in market value of equity share. Then compute the weights, amount divided by the total, then you multiply, you get the product, see you get 14.6. Okay. Once it is done, let me know. If you have any doubts also, please ask. Shall we go further? Okay. I'll go to next part of the problem. Also calculate marginal cost of capital. Remember, what is marginal cost of capital? Marginal cost of capital means WACC only, but for additional finance. When you consider only the additional finance and you compute the cost of that additional finance, it's called as marginal cost of capital. If it raises, how much it raising? Additional 10 crores. Amount will be raised by way of equity and debt in equal proportions, 50-50. Company expects to retain 1.5 crores. So equity, retain earnings will come 1.5 crores. Balance, if any, will come from maybe issue of shares. Additional issue of shares will result in net price of share being fixed at rupees 32. The debt capital by way of term loan will cost 15% for the 2.5 crores and 16% for the next 2.5 crores. Prepare the pattern of raising the debt and equity for every change in the cost of capital. Nothing but we have to go for the marginal cost of capital schedule. We'll do it together. Okay. So 10 crore is what we are raising. And what is the pattern of raising the finance? 50-50, right? So equity is 5 crores, debt is also 5 crores. Out of equity 5 crores, 1.5 comes from retained earnings, existing retained earnings. Balance 3.5 crores comes by way of issue of shares, fresh issue of shares. Debt, they have two types of debt. First 2.5 crores and next 2.5 crores. Two types are there. Existing retained earnings, we can use 16% only. That is existing 16%. We already calculated. But for the fresh issue, you have to recalculate. Market price will be now new number 32, not 40 rupees. New number, not 36 rupees. New number 32. So 3.6 by 32 plus growth rate 0.07. Cost of debt for first 2.5 crores 15%. So 15% into 1 minus tax rate. Next 2.5 crores 16% into 1 minus tax rate. The marginal cost of capital will be only for 10 crores. Retained earnings 16% cost. Share capital fresh issue 18.25. Debt 1 9%. Debt 2 9.6%. What about the amount? Equity, it's 1.5 crores. Equity share capital 3.5 crores. We have done all these things. You can look at here 1.5, 3.5, then 2.5 crores, again 2.5 crores. Then we multiplied by the weights, which is 1.5 by 10 is 0.15, 3.5 by 10 0.35, 2.5 by 10 0.25, 2.5 by 10 0.25. Then multiply cost into weights, 16 into 0.15, that is 2.4, 18.25 into 0.35, that is 6.3875. Like that you can do the total. Cost of capital will come to 13.4375. This is the cost of capital for additional source of finance, and that is called as marginal cost of capital. Please write down. Let me know if you have any doubts. Okay. Hope it's completed. Okay.